There's nothing quite like cruising down an empty highway while blasting your favorite tunes as the sun sets in the rear view mirror. Trade the empty highway for anomaly-infested roads, the music for ominous radio interference, and the setting sun for a series of pocket hurricanes, and you'd find yourself describing Ironwood Studios' Pacific Drive. Blending the frustrating realism of car maintenance with the surreal sci-fi setting, Pacific Drive is a punishing but consistently intriguing survival game, one that tested both my driving proficiency as well as my wits. After some suspicious meddling by scientific corpo body ADA, an area of the Pacific Northwest is now walled off from the outside and dubbed the Olympic Exclusion Zone. Overrun with perplexing, often pulsating horrors called anomalies, select scientists have remained, hoping to investigate what's left of the woodlands. You step into the non-existent shoes of a mute entity lost in these woods known only as the driver, who's found themselves behind the wheel of a large automobile. And you may ask yourself, how did I get here? Well, with a trove of tools, your trusty station wagon, and some friendly radio chatter to fill the dead air, you'll seek answers to those questions as you set out on somewhat repetitious expeditions to explore Pacific Drive's captivating, otherworldly landscape. Your carpanion is more than just a regular dealership junker. Linked to the driver by unknown supernatural forces, your fates are tied, so the well-being of your rusty steed is just as important as your own. You'll have to fix up your fixer-upper back at the base of operations, which you can slowly expand from abandoned pit stop into a proper home. It's a classic setup for the survival genre, and while it doesn't reinvent the wheel, your quirky haven is flush with lockers, doodads, and retro computer stations that help ground you in the atmospheric setting. Pacific Drive is nothing if not flush with systems and metrics to battle against as you chart its procedural wasteland. Alongside keeping the driver alive, you'll need to consider your car's fuel gauge, battery life and tire wear, as well as repair any cracked windows, busted panels, or torn-off doors. Such problems demand specific tools and an array of resources that can be collected in the open world, so prepare to have a sizable mental shopping list every time you embark. While checking off all the items on the list can be extremely rewarding, Pacific Drive often struggles to walk the fine line between engaging and overcomplicated, occasionally giving you just a few too many balls to juggle at once. Beyond simply locating what you need, you'll have to dodge a litany of hazards and collect enough energy to warp back to base before an oncoming storm hits. That's not all. Your living car also has a personality of its own and will develop unique quirks that cause mayhem during time-sensitive escapes. Like Herbie, it can amusingly pop the hood to obscure your vision or suddenly switch off the engine. However, unlike Herbie, you can't just tell the car off to get back to normal. Instead, you'll need to return to the garage and use a system of if this, then that puzzle prompts at the Tinker Station to exorcise its demons. It's a unique idea that brings welcome silliness and wanton devastation to your runs. Getting stuck with a quirk you can't figure out, however, is a real momentum killer that can cause major frustration when you simply want to get back behind the wheel and into the wild. Taking a break isn't always a bad thing though. While stuck in the garage, you might find the time to reassess and prepare for your next big run, crafting car parts that would offer you the best protection for it. Planning for more serious upgrades like insulated doors to fend off electrical strikes or off-road wheels that suit a more erratic driving style certainly puts the fun in functional. Face off against the wilds of the forest enough, and you can unlock a detailing area which allows you to curate and customize the look of your wagon. Hidden throughout derelict structures and outer backpacks, you'll begin to encounter decals and ornamental objects that can zhuzh up your dashboard in amusing ways. You can decorate with bobbleheads, antennas, stickers until your ride is just right. Though try not to get too upset when your freshly painted door gets ripped off as you tumble off a cliff edge. Pacific Drive joins the eerie ranks of other Pacific Northwest psychological horrors like Twin Peaks and Alan Wake, harnessing the area's uncanny essence to chilling effect. The occasional sunlit drives offered little respite as heavy fog, suspicious neon flora, and towering tree shadows ensure you're always on edge and bracing for the next inclement anomaly. Finer details help enhance the mood even further, such as abandoned auto trailers coated in undulating goo, which often contain lost transmissions and interesting logs that help cement how lonely the zone has become. While it can be appropriately moody, the lack of human interaction can eventually take a toll, even with the intermittent, well-acted radio chatter.
Now, interesting thing about those anchor plugs, they use limb technology to stake down pockets of stability in an area. Basically, they delay how quickly you're turned into Swiss cheese out there.
As the grind for resources becomes more routine, Pacific Drive had me begging for something or someone to break the pattern of going out, returning to upgrade my kit, and going out once again. It wasn't long before I was giving out sentimental names to all the objects in my garage. Oh, the sentient item belching dumpster out back? Yeah, that's Grover. Thankfully, Pacific Drive's monstrous anomaly serves its supporting cast, with bizarrely fascinating designs that dare you to sneak a peek. As sirens call if ever there was one, the closer you move, the more at risk you become. One such baddie, the hovering abductor, is made up of traffic lights and ooze, luring you in with a pale blue glow. Get too close, and the friendly blue light turns deep red as the abductor latches onto your car. Rounding out the crew are explosive test dummies that follow you when you're not looking, and patches of energy that impact your steering, often forcing you off the road, making for a rogues gallery with plenty of variety. With such impressive world building, it's a shame that the intimidating atmosphere can take a backseat to the sheer amount of plates you'll need to spin. Vague mission objectives and awkward to find materials mean planning a story progressing run is often fraught with unpredictability. One attempt at crossing through the map's mid-zone was so unexpectedly hazardous my car ended up too battered and quirked up for the return trip. What should have been a simple saunter to the homeward gate was too much to bear, and ended with me losing all my progress for reasons that felt largely out of my control. As much as I relished the challenge, these half-baked aspects of Pacific Drive added undue annoyance on top of the otherwise well-realized and intentionally difficult systems. But that does also make those hard-fought victories even sweeter. Full up on loot and lore, scraping your way out of a storm into a beckoning beam of light that teleports you home is an electric feeling. Especially if you know the work you managed to get done before your escape will have carved a path into an exciting new area. Resources, including the basics, do tend to run thin, so returning unscathed from the brink of death warrants a proud, dad-level pat in the back. Unfortunately, the rinse-and-repeat nature of Pacific Drive's mid-game has an impact on the pacing of its story. While following a trio of scientists grappling with work-life balance in a hallucinatory hellscape is an ambitious tale to graft onto a survival game, the emotional beats didn't hit quite as hard as I hoped. And ultimately, while it does answer some of the questions it poses by the time the credits roll, it doesn't tie up any of the most interesting concepts it introduces. Particularly, Pacific Drive ends in a way that feels tied to the trappings of the survival genre, rather than honoring the world it had built up over the 20-plus hours it took me to reach its climactic finale. A singular survival game steeped in an unnerving world, Pacific Drive pairs meticulous management with intense excursions that will test your motoring mettle. Balancing its symphony of systems can sometimes be an overly punishing process, but the riveting tension of each run is fun enough to keep you on your toes even through some repetitious pain points. And when my battered station wagon came screaming out of the portal to safety with no doors and a dead engine, I always felt compelled to fix its faults, buckle back in, and maybe play with the Leica bobblehead on the dash. That frustrating hunk of metal was mine, after all. For more recent survival games, check out our reviews of Enshrouded or Power World, and for everything else, stick with IGN.